Grace and peace to you from God, the one who heals and restores us. Amen. Well, friends, last week we heard the story of the Pharisees and Jesus sparring with one another over what is clean and what is unclean. You see, friends, the Pharisees were really concerned that Jesus' disciples weren't washing their hands before they ate. So to attack Jesus, to corner him, they decide to quiz him on cleanliness. And they essentially label Jesus and his disciples as unclean. So after this exchange, what does Jesus do? Well, he goes to Tyre. There's a map of where Jesus traveled. Jesus goes to a place where unclean people live. It seems Jesus is trying to prove a point here, friends. You see, Tyre is where Gentiles live, that is, non-Jews. For Jews like Jesus and the Pharisees, for that matter, Gentiles were unclean. As we heard in our children's message, Jews generally didn't engage with Gentiles because they didn't really like each other. So in my mind, Jesus goes to Tyre to show those religious leaders just how committed he is to sharing the good news of God with people who are very different from them. Jesus goes to Tyre to expand the circle of believers. Jesus goes to Tyre, a place where we might expect more hostility toward Jesus and his message. He goes to Tyre, a place where we might expect Jesus to be unknown, anonymous, unrecognizable. And yet that's not what happens here, right, friends? As evidenced by our story. Even Gentiles know about Jesus. They know what he has said, they know what he has done, and they know what Jesus is capable of doing. Throughout Mark's gospel, Jesus is a healer. In fact, in seminary, I took an entire course based around the notion of Jesus as healer, and we actually focused on all of the healing stories from Mark's gospel. So in our story for today, Jesus is the healer. He is showing a major characteristic of God. Jesus is showing how God is in the business of healing and restoring what is broken. And we heard in our reading from Isaiah the very same message. Our God heals, our God restores. So as I sat and read our story for this week, friends, one of the things that jumped out at me was the deep need of this Syrophoenician woman's daughter and the man who was deaf. Did you notice that little girl, she's not there? Her mom leaves home, begs Jesus to heal her daughter. And then the man who was deaf, we're told that people, a mystery they, bring him to Jesus. And they too beg Jesus to heal their friend. So in both of these healing stories, it's people coming to Jesus, asking for healing on behalf of others. They're doing it for someone else. So this got me thinking. If God is in the business of healing, shouldn't we be a part of that also? And I began to see how this woman and this mysterious they are advocates, faithful advocates for healing of other people. So how can we be advocates for others' healing? I want you to look around, friends, and think about the people in your lives, your friends, your family, maybe some news stories or events in our world. Where, who, or what needs healing today? Maybe it's a friend who just got a difficult diagnosis. Maybe it's a coworker who's in a relationship that just isn't working out. Maybe it's a family member who feels guilty about something. Or maybe it's something bigger than that. Maybe something systemic. Gun violence, poverty, homelessness. So many people, places, and systems need healing and restoration. And friends, God calls us to partner in healing others and advocate for the healing of our world. God's work is about healing. And our hands are called to be a part of that. So how do we advocate for healing? Let me give you some examples, friends. Maybe doing something similar to what the woman and the mystery they does, begging God to heal, begging God to act on behalf of someone else. That's prayer, friends. It could mean forgiveness. Hearing someone say, "You are forgiven," that's healing. Saying, "I'm sorry," could be healing. Maybe reconnecting with someone you haven't spoken to or heard from in a long time. Reconciliation is healing. Even the end of a relationship can be healing. Getting out of something that is unhealthy or toxic. Closure is healing. It could mean advocating for those in need, providing a service for them. I think of our friends at Christ Lutheran Church Medical Mission. I got to visit them a couple of weeks ago. And they're addressing the needs of the Allison Hill community in Harrisburg by providing a medical and dental clinic. Physical healing for our neighbors. It could mean teaching English to a new immigrant or refugee, someone who has probably experienced trauma, and providing a safe place for them in their new home here in the United States. It could mean using our voices on behalf of those who can't, advocating for the safety of our children in schools, advocating for programs that address hunger and poverty in our communities. I give you a lot of examples, friends. And it can be overwhelming at times, right? All of us know how much healing our world needs right now. And we are not called to do it all. But we are called to do something. Each of us are called to do a small part. Called to use our hearts, our minds, our hands, our voices to bring about just some healing in this world. And what happens when we are faithful advocates of healing? Well, amazing things happen, friends. Because God promises to show up in those people and in those places. God will come and save you, Isaiah 35 tells us this morning. Again and again throughout our Bibles, there are stories upon stories of healing and restoration. Because we have a God who is in the business of healing. And by the way, friends, this is free. It doesn't cost us anything. God freely does this for us, for all people, for the world. That's what Jesus is trying to teach us. Because that's what our God does, friends. God heals, God restores, and that work has never stopped. Today, God continues to heal and to restore. So I'm wondering, where have you seen healing or restoration? For me, it is so beautiful to see our volunteers teaching English care for and support our students and their families. One of our volunteers helped a student get a bicycle, so they had transportation. That's healing. One of our volunteers helped a student apply for a job she got, by the way. That's healing. I see God in all of that, friends. Or recently, I had a member of Trinity tell me that she has reconnected with family members she didn't even know she had. Relationship, connection, that's healing. I see God in that. So where have you seen healing or restoration? Where have you seen God showing up? Because friends, God does and God will show up. When we call on God, God promises to be there, to be here. Nothing can stop God from that work. Not the walls we build up between one another, not the human differences we use to label one another, not hostility, not opposition, because our God is bigger, stronger, and better than those things. That's the God we have, friends. That's the God we are worshiping this morning. Our God is in the business of healing. Our God is in the business of restoring what is broken. That's what our God does. So thanks be to God for that. Amen.